Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound, and I'm very, very happy to have somebody on the show who has nothing to say. I'm very happy to have Dominic Palermo from Nothing here on the show. So Dominic, thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
As well as ours. Dominic, the first thing that we always do here on the show is the plug of the day. I'll give you a moment to think which band or project you would like to plug, none that you are involved in. So my plug of the day is a band, and I looked it up to pronounce it correctly. And I'm very sure you know them, Dive.
Oh, yeah.
D-I-I-F-V, sorry. So I think one of those bands that deserves more attention, although they are already gaining popularity, but a little bit more can always help, right?
Yeah, they get plenty of attention here. I wouldn't give them any more. I love those guys, though. They're all good people. We've played shows with them a decade ago. Great band. We've kind of been like shoulder to shoulder since the beginning. We both kind of started releasing right around the same time, and we've kind of navigated the world of the genre and stuff, together. I consider them allies. Yeah, they're good band. Yeah,
definitely. So, which band or project would you like to push a little?
It's such a double-edged sword because I like so many things that are off the radar that I get so upset when the mass media, the mass population discovers them and ruins them for me. So I have to be careful here that I don't give away something too good.
Okay, let's say, which was the last band that really positively surprised you?
Well, I will say that one of my favorite bands of all time is this band Low.
Yeah.
They've been so inspirational to everything I've done, not only in music but just like life. I've been with this band through so many of their records. Through rough times and everything, and I just while they are wildly popular, they are just not anywhere as popular as they should be, and people should dive into those Low records, and they should be at the top of everyone's list, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. Nothing also covered a Low track, didn't you? In metal, wasn't that?
Yeah, good. Yeah, very, very a long time ago. In the bedroom, me and my friend Nick Bassett, we recorded some stuff during a snowstorm. I was like, hey, you want to help me record this Low cover? I mean, it's obviously that song is just like a heartbreaking song to me, and we did it no justice at all. But yeah, I mean, one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah.
So for everybody who has not heard it yet, I hope you did, but nevertheless, the reason for this interview is that in 5 days after you watch this, or 5 days after the publication of this interview, Dominic and his band will release their new full-length record, A Short History of Decay, on February 27th, so on Friday. It's the first one on Run for Cover Records. We'll come to that in a moment. And it's the first full-length where it's only Nothing since the Great Dismal in 2020. You had the collaboration record with Full of Hell in between. You also, I think, did another split with Restorations in between. But this is the first full length after nearly 6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's always stupid to ask what happened, but I mean, like, there was the pandemic in between, but were there other factors as well that, I don't want to say inspired, but that led to this 6-year gap?
Yeah, absolutely. We released our first record in 2013, Guilty of Everything. It was all very new to us. And things out of nowhere kind of just picked up for us after that record. This project very much was started with me in a bedroom writing songs, kind of trying to use them only for therapeutic reasons, and I never really had any intention of releasing anything. And soon after that, I had people bothering me to release a demo. So I figured, what was the harm of me, recording a demo? And it just, a couple releases later, we were like, oh, well, maybe we should just record a record. I put together a band, and we recorded Guilty of Everything. We had zero interest from anybody. We didn't really have an identity. We were kind of confusing to people at that time. We didn't really fit into the punk, the hardcore world too much, and the indie world kind of felt like we were a little too heavy for them. So it was a confusing time for us. But Relapse Records was one of the first people to come across and show interest, which, I mean, changed everything for me. And I still, am forever in debt to those guys at Relapse. But yeah, things picked up, and then we were just on this 2.5-year cycle for about a decade, writing, recording, touring on a record. Every 2.5 years, 4 records, 10 years. And the last one being Great Dismal, which, at the time felt like a good tie-up for what I've done. And I I wasn't necessarily going to put it on the shelf, but I felt like everything that I wanted to accomplish, like through this band and with that therapeutic aspect in mind, I felt like I might have scratched that itch. And then we released Great Dismal during COVID, and that was its own challenge in itself,
But it also broke the cycle, didn't it?
It broke the cycle a bit, yeah. And like a car speeding 150 miles an hour, we pulled the e-brake, and all of a sudden here I am at home after 10 years, and home felt not like home. I lost a lot of relationships with people, and I realized that I kind of sidetracked like my whole life around me to kind of follow this road with nothing. And I just had like a pretty big moment of clarity at that point, and realized like, wow, I'm 10 years older. A lot of the wear and tear from the road caught up to me mentally and physically. And I kind of a lot of the things that I wanted to improve about myself and I ignored for 10 years, and I had a great distraction for it. So there was this point at home where, I kind of had to look inward whether I liked it or not. I mean, when you jam on the brakes in a car, what happens? Like, everything moves to the front of the car, including yourself, So yeah. That's kind of what happened. We move at a chaotic pace when we're on the road. Like, I'm busy. I handle every detail of everything kind of with a good team. And here I am all of a sudden with not a lot to do, and had to confront myself, which is something I was definitely avoiding for a long time. And I guess with, I never really have an intention to write. It usually comes to me through writing, first, like pen and a pad. With that clarity and that looking inward, a lot of things started to come to surface that I hadn't challenged myself with. And a lot of shameful, embarrassing traits and things that all humans have. But, it gave me a new challenge, which was to kind of, put that to the front. Nothing's always been a very honest band, and within the lyrics and everything, and the situations and the tales and whatever else I'm speaking of. And I kind of just felt like, as I was hiding a lot of this stuff, I'm also hiding it from my, like, the art aspect of this thing. So I kind of just dove into that with that mindset. And next thing you know, I was writing, and then next thing you know, I'm picking up a guitar or sitting behind a piano, and songs started to come to life, basically.
Yeah, and it's also a way that, I mean, like a lot of people, a lot of musicians describe this cycle as kind of like fake life, because you never lead a normal life, never a regular life. And then, of course, just like you say, you hit the brakes, and all of a sudden you have to find your real life, and in that process also yourself. Let me ask it this way: when looking at some of the lyrics on the new record, on Short History of Decay, I have a feeling they could be just about those 5, 6 years, or they could be also a little bit more about yourself, and maybe also about nothing as a band, because I sometimes have a feeling as if we are looking at the beginning of a final period of nothing, because I'm always a big fan at looking at the first sentence of a book, last sentence of a book, first sentence of a record, last sentence of a record. And the first sentence on the record is, when I was young, life was easy. The last sentence is, you're my favorite fear.
Yeah.
Are we entering a certain phase, a certain era in nothing where, well, for better or for worse, nothing's coming into its final stage?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's its final stage. I mentioned that I thought I tied everything up with Guilty of Everything, but as I sat with this time, I kind of started to realize that there was a lot of things that were left unsaid about this whole 10-year tenor, and when we started tracking these songs and I started hearing them back, I get a little emotional, like reading some of this stuff back to myself. And when I hear myself actually in the recordings, like it does kind of bring like this bit of emotion towards me. And that's usually when I know that I'm on the right track too. Because if it's able to touch me after I've had to live through the whole process of building it out, like then I know that I did something special, at least for me,
Oh, let me assure you, it works for me as well. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. And I don't want to seem melodramatic about it, but I mean, it's like as a new, it's a different perception of the one that I had before. Guilty of Everything was very much like a look into that previous decade of my life with the prison and the loss of so many friends and family, and but I didn't really know what I was doing when I made that record, and a lot of things were rushed or kind of diluted in a veil of self-consciousness and whatnot. And I just felt like ultra focused on this, and like not afraid to put things forward that I may have been like intimidated by before. So it was quickly that I realized that this was the true tie-in for this band and the records that were previously recorded. So yes and no. I mean, this does feel like a final chapter. I mean, you mentioned like the first sentence, last sentence. I'm the same way. I see every record as kind of. I read a lot. And I kind of always build my records to kind of feel like a novel in their own sense, but the whole catalog kind of works like that in its own way. And this record does feel like, yeah, this is the final chapter. Now, if it's the final chapter of nothing, I don't know. Like I said, I write when I feel like it's a necessity to write. It's like I said, bringing it back to the therapeutic side of things. Like it's still how I move past the day. It's still how I deal with my past and things I've done. And it's a good way for me to try to build my character out and become like a better person that handles and a better person at handling some of the trauma that I've gone through. It's for the fear of being narcissistic. It's how I deal with everything in this crazy ass life, and that hasn't changed, which is nice. So. Yes, it's a great tie-in for nothing, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if this is like the true final chapter of nothing or anything. But it does feel like a very good tie-in for those first 5 records now.
That's what I wanted to say after your answer. When I'm looking at it that way, then it's maybe the end of one part of nothing. Whether it's the last one, we don't know, but it's tying a lot of things up, and yeah, I can see that. I didn't want to ask that, but after you've been so open about the question, I mean, like you said that it has a therapeutic aspect. Would you say that being honest with yourself is maybe the most important thing that you had to relearn, and that is now also on the new record? I think there are very many amazingly honest moments on the record. Is that something that you think is important? Learning to be honest to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the reason why I think honesty is always going to be one of the reasons why nothing has been around so much. We've never really like embarrassed ourselves too much. We kind of lucked out of like not being so genre identifiable that like we ever got stuck into like a certain scene or a certain thing, which is invaluable for what we do.
Yeah.
We still get new fans on every record, young kids. We still keep the old ones. It's and I think a lot of that has to do with more than just the music. It's always been I think a lot of people attach themselves to this band because of the honesty and the storytelling, and they can relate to it in a lot of ways. I could tell that to be true by dealing with a lot of the people that message me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm an open book. I pretty much I speak to people all the time in the DM, for better or for worse. Sometimes it's a good relationship, and sometimes I feel like I could maybe help people, but sometimes people take advantage of me. But that comes with the territory of being the kind of person I am. It happens that way my whole life. But yeah, this record, like I said, I revisited that, and I wanted to challenge that honesty, and I wanted to double down, and I really wanted to just shed as much as I could, and like try to pull some of this weight off my shoulders. When we started, it was like the recipe, but as I mentioned, in that cycle for 10 years, you kind of use it as a tool rather than what it is. You get so used to being in this method of doing things that you don't test yourself anymore. So a big part of this record, as I'm testing new grounds of like my opening myself up to the world and for myself, I also wanted to test the musical range of things too. Rather than write this like original song on an acoustic guitar and try to take that and turn it into what I think the nothing sound is. I just wrote it how I felt it needed to be out, and I didn't care what like the interpretation of it was going to be at the end of the day, because this record means too much to me to be as real as I can telling the stories, but fake the funk on the music side of things. It just needed to be natural how I felt it needed to be, and that's what I ran with through Caution to the Wind, and and that's how I handled it basically.
It's interesting that you say that you've never been a part of a scene, and I can see that because you also already hinted at it in one of your answers. Because basically, when you started, there was no such scene, for lack of a better word, let's say shoegaze, okay? For shoegaze music. It hadn't been around for quite a while in this form and shade that you have been doing it. So how do you feel when people call you and a band like Whir, and maybe some other bands along the way, like the new starting generation of a new wave of shoegaze, the first generation of a new wave?
I always struggled with this since then till now.
But can you understand it?
Yeah. Well, when we first started, we were kind of our own interpretation of this shoegaze thing. Like I hate any of the taglines that I hear for what it is and stuff like that. So I don't really get into any of that. But like, there were bands that were playing. I mean, really great bands that I drew inspiration from around that time. They just were struggling to put people in a room because while they were fucking sick. Nobody really was hip to it yet, and no one really understood it. And like bands like Place to Bury Strangers and Ringo Death Star, Asobi Sexu, like bands like that, like fucking Jesus Christ. I mean, there's a ton of them, and I idolized these bands when I was trying to start nothing and trying to like bumble my way through of writing songs. You know what I mean? I didn't have a lot of practice. I just had like a vision. So I put some people around me that could help me get to where I needed to be, and we just started pumping songs out. But that said, the style that we kind of rolled with, which was more of an aggressive, kind of heavier version of this, with ultra depressive, cloak over top. Over the next few years, you started to see people adapt and kind of manipulating our sound a little bit, and for many cases making it better, or a lot of cases making it embarrassingly bad too. Which said to me, like, that we were doing the right thing. Like we definitely put our footprint into the genre. Like I said, for better or for worse. But you start to see this new scene of this next generation come through with bands like Full Body 2 and Their Gut in a Body of Water, and this like crazy scene out of Philly, especially, which just was like really special for me, because everyone just like despised what was happening in Philly when I started. Like, playing up in New York, it was like, oh, it's the Philly band, but now Philly has this like, magical scene with so many great bands, Knife Play, Halloween, and Doug from Tagabo, Their Gut in a Body of Water, runs Julia's War Records, and he's just like finding like the most amazing bands around the country. So like, I don't necessarily want to say that like that Nothing was an inspiration for this, because a lot of these bands don't sound like Nothing, but they a lot of them do give me the props as like their old head, and I try to connect with them in every way I can and show support, because we didn't have that when we started. We had nobody, no one wanted to touch us. Also, just the fact that I was like a Philly-born convicted felon. People didn't know how to approach me, even though I'm super approachable. But like, when that's in the press line and that's what everyone's hindering on, a lot of people didn't want to deal with it. So for whatever reasons, we didn't have much support. So like, when I look at this beautiful thing that's happening within Philly and throughout the world now, that's why I jumped in, and I wanted to be like a good old head for people, and just like help them see their vision as much as I can, and be a part of what is happening, celebrate it in any way I can. It's not a normal thing for a musician to get out of their own head and their own vision, but like I'm not the normal musician. Like anybody who knows me knows that I'm far from that. I see things in a different way, and I've been through the ringer, and I just like to see people, good people thrive, and if Nothing was responsible for any of that makes me feel great.
Yeah, and you might take the props for, how should I say, sometimes, you've been speaking about the old head, as you called it. There is a reason why people look up to other people. You've been talking about the we very often, which is a very interesting thing, because basically, and if I look at it correctly, aren't you more or less the last remaining member of the original Nothing
Absolutely
lineup?
Yeah.
And now you have a lot of people that are also from really interesting bands. You got two guys from Cloakroom, Zachary Jones, who was in Manslaughter 777, Bob Bruneau, who was in West Coast. So you have assembled a very good core of musicians.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you? That now you have like this really cool lineup.
Well, I'll back up. I always say we because it's never even though I'm steering the wheel. I've always had a great core group of people around me to help me see out my vision, and nothing would not exist if it wasn't for every one of them, even the ones that I lost contact with or had some sort of falling out with. Like every one of them have made their mark and on nothing, and it continues to be that way. It's a revolving door with a lot of people. I've got to work with so many talented people that are like family at this point with me. We're into the 20s at this point. With
16 years ago, right? Basically.
Yeah, yeah. And I can hear every one of their influences. Like maybe as somebody who taught me how to string a guitar better. Like or as someone who showed me a chord. Like. Brandon was a really big part of Nothing in the early days, and he basically was the reason that I learned how to play guitar and sing. Like Kyle Kimball was like the force behind Nothing for 9 years. Like we would never be Nothing without these people. So
you would
I
be
always
nothing without
these. Yeah. No, it's okay. I'm used to the who's on first jokes by now. But yeah, I mean, that's always been the case with this, and it also just gives me this freedom to work with like really great musicians, which like leads us to like the current Nothing lineup. A lot of these decisions are made first always about like my friendships with people. I'm not the kind of person that goes out and gets a random guy that I know can shred and put him in the band. Like I don't care about this. This isn't an office job for me. Like I'm going to be spending time with these people. I want it to be somebody that understands who I am. And
you're not holding castings. That's like
yeah, exactly. Like it always happens pretty organically. Like Bob Bruno toured with us forever. As a drink tech, we would call him, even though he was more kind of guitar tech and just hanging out. He hated the tagline guitar tech, so he was the drink tech. He'd make the cocktails, and he toured with us forever when he wasn't busy with Best Coast. So it was natural to get him in after Christina stepped away to do more of the Gouge Away stuff. Doyle, I was in love with Cloakroom since the first time I heard him. We brought them out on tour many times. So that was an easy a fill for Doyle. I mean, he's just this brilliant guitar player that this angelic voice that I can't believe comes out of his long ass body. One of my favorite singers of all time, to be honest. Zach, Zach was one of those guys that everyone told me, when you meet Zach, you're going to love Zach. And I hate that kind of thing, but that people would tell him the same thing. But when we met, it was like we were brothers immediately. And leaning into the way that I wanted to do this record, I've known for a few years. He was the perfect person just because of like, he's a beast behind the drums, but he's also has this like higher mind when it comes to like electronics and stuff like that. So that was an easy fill. And then Cam, I met at a pretty young age. He was 20 years old and he was shooting photos for us. I loved him, brought him on tour, and then when we started working on this record, I knew we were going to need a third guitarist, and he's a shredder. So that was just an easy job. And he plays in a couple really sick bands too, Cloakroom, but he also has his personal project, Ladder to God, which is really sick. It's if you're a Red House Painters fan, it's Red House worship for sure.
Which is also a very good comparison.
Yeah. That's another band I might put on the
plug of a day.
Plug of the day. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel truly like, I hate saying truly blessed, but I do feel blessed to have these good people around me, and the vision could have never been what it is without them, for sure.
Something that is really striking about the record, and I hope you don't mind me using maybe a superlative on it. there are some of the most beautiful Nothing songs ever on this record. And at the same time, there are some seemingly really harsh, nearly industrial parts on the record. Was it intentional that, we had those big, I don't want to say divide, but this contrast?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always been like a Nothing thing, but I really dug in deep and made the contrast like a little bit more
Bigger,
full
I think.
on both ways. Yeah, it's something I always wanted to do. I've always been on this. Well, I've always had this internal struggle of like, you know, wanting to have like a super minimal depressive record, like some of the low stuff, right? But
Mhm.
I'm a rocker by heart too, so I love aggression, So it's it's a part of my own identity crisis of trying to do all things at once. And I kind of force it into play, and it's confusing for a lot of people. It always has been. But to me, it felt more realized on this, and it felt like very intentional. And I think like, when I want to make a point, I push myself forward until it makes sense, until people get it. Just like, this band was in the beginning. It didn't really make sense, and it doesn't have to. It's natural to be this way, and if you do things enough, you're going to get better at it usually. And I think that like this record just is like a signifying way of proving that. Like to me, like it feels more focused. It feels like this doesn't feel like it's just jammed in there. Like it all makes sense when you lay it down together. So. Yeah, that's just been a struggle of mine from the beginning, and I think whatever method I chose to kind of step to this record, kind of helped help the vision move forward.
Yeah, and it definitely shows. I mean, like there are some really beautiful songs, some really aggressive songs. There is even something that a lot of people would probably call a happy song, because if you just listen to nerve scales, that's like nearly pop. But if you then look at the lyrics, like it wears me out. I mean, like you're very open there, and at the same time, you pack it into this. To me, it has like a shiny, happy people thing.
Okay, I didn't see that coming, but I
mean, like very, very poppy, and at the same time, if you look at the lyrics, darkness around. Do you like that sometimes? To pack, to combine things that at first don't seem like really combinable. Beauty, like pop, and at the same time, some Nick Cave-like lyrics.
Yeah, I mean that's always been the goal, is to just keep people off their pivot a little bit about what we're doing. I'm not the best musician in the world, but I do think that I can write songs and put songs together pretty well.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be one way. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach things to get your point across. And like I said, I mean, when we were demoing some of these songs, like, we just threw caution to the wind, and we did what we felt right, rather than sticking to a plan, and it felt really freeing to do it that way. And I feel like the record does have this like, it does have this feel of like shedding and this ultimate freedom, kind of the freedom that you would get from, telling somebody something that they don't want to hear, that you've been holding in for a while, and that type of freedom. Like, okay, like this is going to suck to do, but at the end, like, hopefully the silver lining is that the weight feels a little bit more pulled off. And that's kind of what happened for me. getting this record out. You know, a different type of weight felt lifted off my shoulders a little bit. And all aspects of it, from you know, the content to the musical sides of things.
There is also the final track that I've already mentioned, or whose final line I already mentioned, Essential Tremors. Here you are very, very open about something that is sometimes audible on the record. Maybe you want to talk about it yourself. So, what is the story behind Essential Tremors?
Well, Essential Tremors is you know, it's something that runs in my family. It's a neurological thing, kind of similar to Parkinson's, but not anywhere as near as dangerous. I think it's physically disabling a little bit, and it kind of gets worse as you get older, or if you have some kind of brain traumas like I have, it kind of makes it hyper noticeable. So I've been dealing with like shaky hands and shaky limbs a little bit for the past 10 years. Kind of been noticeable for a long time, but I never really put two and two together. Like I said, through that decade, through that grinder that we were running through, I couldn't know if it was attributed to the head traumas or if it was attributed to the alcohol, or, you know, drugs, or, you know, just the overall anxiety or paranoid stuff that I had dealt with. Like, but, you know, when I was home, it started to become a little bit more evident, that maybe this thing that's, you know, that's runs in my mom's side of the family, maybe it had come for me a little bit too. And wasn't until I was in the studio, till I realized like the severity and how it kind of crept up to me. You know, I run the vocals with a pretty hot mic because I sing pretty quietly. And listening back, I was just like, wow, my voice really has a crazy wobble to it. And then I was like, oh, this degenerative like disease has kind of worked its way to my vocal cords, which is a thing that happens. My uncle had it really bad when he was in his 60s. And he actually went to Arizona and got like a brain implant to fix it because he couldn't even hold a glass of water. You know, for me, you know, it's distracting. It's a little embarrassing sometimes if I'm out, you know. I mean, people called me out on social media sometimes if I was filming a story. It was like, you know, shaky, and there, you know, people comment back like, yo, you need to get a drink, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, attributing to other stuff.
Yeah, and then people would see me playing guitar because my hands shake a lot. Like it really comes into play like when I put pressure on something, you know, like if I just keep my hand still, it kind of stays a little bit still. But like if I am using it for something, that's when it shakes. Yeah, so my hands shake a lot when I'm playing guitar on stage. And I've read comments of people saying, you know, oh, I can't believe he's nervous still playing shows and stuff like that. And I never really clicked to me what was going on, you know. But it did around this, and it's just something I've been kind of dealing with. But on the flip side of it, and getting back to the track, like it kind of, you know, like I mentioned before, I've been like a cannonball flying through like all my physical problems and mental problems, you know, like with no regard for my own self for so long that, like, you know, now I'm faced with this thing 10 years later down the line, and you know, I'm seeing some degenerative, you know, things around my body. And it just like kind of brought into this like the morality of things, and like, you know, and how I've kind of just ignored that aspect for so long, that it just was like it felt like a really interesting angle. And since it's so evident on the record, I figured since I'm bearing all here, like, you know, we might as well not try to hide that vocal, you know, like, you know, that's pull. This is a great reason to try my vocal clean on a record. You know, it's not my favorite thing. I hate my voice. I don't feel like I have a great voice, and not having this like typical reverby, you know, delayed vocal that sounds really sultry and nice. Like let's have a raw vocal. Like, you know, like this is a part of the process. We want to do it. That's not just stick a toe in, that's jump into the water. So that was kind of the idea of it. And with that song's like, it's somewhat about my own morality, but it's also it's very much about like the morality of the things that are around you that can keep you happy, and their eventual expiration that is inevitable. And I kind of just put myself in a position where I might still be around, but some of the things that are around that keep me afloat had gone, and how I would how you know the how I would be without it, and you know, and whether it was worth it to have it around in facing the loss of it, basically. And yeah, you know, You're My Favorite Fear is like my ode to that, to those things and those people. Yeah, that's kind of how I approached it, and it just kind of tied in with what I was dealing with the ET, basically.
Well, yeah, the honesty is really striking, and I think maybe you can shut down a few people who, or I hope that you can shut down a few people who attribute the shaking voice, the shaking hands, to things that are just wrong. And of course, it also ties in with the record title. I mean, A Short History of Decay. That's also, I'm like, we're both in our 40s. That's something that we feel, folks. You know, like, my knees are not as strong as they were 20 years ago.
Yes, sir. I love how we both started this talking about being in pain, and that's kind of a lot of what my life is these days.
Getting up isn't the same thing.
I mean, life is pain, right? Life is shame. Life is struggle and strife, and yeah, that's just a part of it. So like. I've been holding on to this title for a pretty long time. It's from one of my favorite authors, Emil Surian, and it's not really directly attributed to anything that he writes about, and that too much, besides a general, you know, pessimistic outlook on everything. But for this record, like the double side of that, just like kind of just envelopes like that 360 moment that nothing's having. You know, it's been 15 years or whatever it is, and it is a short history, and you know, it just felt perfect for me to slap that on there.
Did you? I mean, like, apart from the offer that you just mentioned, did you also notice that it's indirectly a hint at Stephen Hawking's A Short History of Time?
Yeah, well, I can't tell. I definitely am not. Stephen Hawking is probably a little bit over my head. But yeah, I mean, Emil Surian had a book titled A Short History of Decay, and I would say it was definitely more for him.
I have a few more questions before we come to from the quickfire round.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to know something about the place where you recorded, because I heard some tales about Sonic Ranch that seem like, okay, this could be a Cormac McCarthy story.
Yeah. It was a yeah. It was like every nothing situation. It's always chaotic with us. You know, we just do things a little bit differently than most people, and anybody who has been around us, the countless amount of people that have been around us, will vouch for that. And the same goes when we're in the studio. But the setting and the environment was just such a special thing for us all. You know, here we are in you know, deep South Texas, right on the border, on a 4,600 acre pecan farm, and you know, all the agriculture was just like out of season, so the trees were just like barren, and it just looked like we were on Mars or something out there.
Again, decay, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, man, I mean, like, I'm no stranger to my own culture appropriation of Mexican culture and Mexican music. All my friends in Mexico City love it, and they put me onto a lot of music, like corrido stuff that I just like fell in love with over the past like 5-6 years. And it just felt like I was in the right place for this record, especially how I was approaching some of these songs. And yeah, it was a great place to be. Like one instance, there was actually this studio is like kind of infamous, but it's also like a cult favorite. Like people who go there usually don't go anywhere else afterwards. Like the guys from Mars Volta are like really good friends with the owner, and they're there. I think they just shot like an independent movie there, actually. I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but yeahs were there while we were there, and I'm somewhat close with Nick Zinner a little bit. We see each other in New York all the time, have a chat, so it was nice to see them there. So it's very like purposeful to be there. Like people know why they're going there. And the owner, Tony, is just like this, 80-year-old billionaire, but he's just like not your typical billionaire. I mean, like he shows so much love to musicians, and he really takes care of people. He Ministry recorded there in the 90s, and wound up living on the ranch with him for like 2 years. So like there's like a ton of old Ministry backline there. Like we got to use some cabinets that had like the Ministry logo on it on the record.
Oh, that's where some of the sounds come from.
Yeah. I mean, you got to lean into what's there, right? When we did "Tired of Tomorrow" with Will Yip in 2014 or 15, the whole record I used the same microphone as Lauryn Hill did on I can't remember the record title name right now. Miseducation.
The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Yeah. So like I sang out of the same microphone as Lauryn Hill and that. Like so like that shit's always cool with me. But like this studio is just filled historically. And one night when we were hanging out, we finished up around 11. We're drinking. We made our rule was you can't start drinking until after 2:00. So that way we knew we got a little bit done. And by the time like the end of the night happened, we would move to more creative stuff where we were a little bit looser. So we do make a plan around the chaos for sure. But we're going to be drinking, right? So yeah, like we're a little tuned up, and we're leaving the studio, and there's a corridos band in one of the other studios recorded, and they were like testing out like a new singer. And the guy came up to me that was outside. He was like their manager or the A&R person. And he was like, "Oh, you guys recording there? You guys are nothing, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I loved Guilty of Everything." And I was just like, I know from being in these places where you see another band, you start Googling like, who is this? So I just figured it was that. He asked us to come by and check out what was going on. And my curiosity got the best of me for sure because of, I told you my current issue with my culture appropriation. I made Doyle, who's usually my partner in crime, when it comes to partying a little bit. He doesn't say no. So we went down there and we hung out with this band for a while. We hung out with the A&R guy, and he actually pulled up his sleeve and he had a, if you prefer, an astronaut hum tattoo, the zebra tattooed on his arm. So I was like, oh, maybe he actually does
really knows his stuff.
Yeah. And after that, like we just started drinking. We hung out with them till 4:30, 5 in the morning while they were in the studio, and they're just smoking weed and doing whatever. We're just drinking with them, hanging out, watching them play. Like just great musicians. They had a full brass section. And I was just like mind blown. But the cool part about it was we were able to like kind of talk to him in this drunken state and be like, I had this idea for Never Come Never Morning of having a brass section on it because I wanted to lean into that inspirational stuff that I've been listening to with like the Corridos stuff. And they were just like super into it. And the next day, like it happened like organically. We had the brass section come in and track on the record. And I was like head over heels over that because one, it happened organically, like I would feel
completely unplanned.
Yeah, I'd feel kind of grimy being like, oh, can you guys go grab me some Mexican guys to play horns like for this record? Like I would never do that because I just wouldn't be able to feel comfortable with myself doing that. But this happened in such a natural, cool way that like, we got horns on the record, which was sick. It kind of gave it this like neutral milk hotel vibe a little bit, like blown out fuzz and like horns and, piano and strings. And it just like really beautiful moment for me. So like, the studio is just perfect for this record, I think.
And I have one more question because for everybody, transparency, we are recording on January 29th. And let me have a look. 4 hours and a little bit ago, my favorite festival announced that you are going to play at Roadburn. So
yeah,
I've read that you are playing A Short History of Decay in full. But I mean, like, of course, A Short History of Decay is like, what, 50 minutes, something like that. So you have a little more time. What can we expect? Will you dig out old stuff? Favorites, of course, but what do we expect?
So the plan with a limited amount of time that we have, we want to tackle a bunch of songs that we probably won't play anywhere else from Short History Decay, not necessarily the full record. The personnel on some of these songs is a little bit more difficult. Like, like Purple Strings has a full string ensemble. It has Mary Lattimore on harp. It has a marimba. It has a piano, which, I do envision a time where we'll make that happen. But for this, we're going to take like a thicker bit of the new record and play some of the stuff that we normally wouldn't play from previous records too. A lot of them a lot of the tracks that I'm picking are going to kind of be like highlight tracks of like where I was in that particular moment and how they kind of fit into this chronological fit from us originally doing Roadburn 2 weeks after Guilty of Everything was released to 15, 12, 13 years later, doing this a month after Short History Decay comes out. So it's kind of like a celebration of our relationship with Europe and our relationship with Roadburn and kind of just trying to create something a little special for everybody that attends.
And the last question before the quick fire round. You are known to cover several artists. You've covered, as we said, you've covered Lowe, you've covered Leonard Cohen, covered lots of other artists as well. If you could choose one artist to cover one of your tracks, who living or dead, doesn't matter, as long as you don't pick Beethoven. Which artist would you like to cover which of your tracks?
Oh wow. Geez. I mean, I think just being such a fan of the singer-songwriter thing, it would be cool to hear, Townes Van Zandt do a complete stripped down version of like one of our songs. I mean, I've always been in love with Townes. He's just everything he sings about his life, it's just like this beautiful tragedy enveloped in like, this amazing sound and song. So for me, like, I'd be embarrassed to even pick a song for him to sing. But yeah, if he can muscle out a track, I mean, you know, in space and time, that would be something for sure.
So, Dominic, thanks first of all for the insight into the record and also into the open answers to a lot of very difficult questions, I'm sure. But nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview without the quick fire round at the end. You always get two alternatives and have to choose. Let's start off with two things that you also picked for a numero group playlist, I think last year. So I want to start with Codeine. Which record would you rather listen to right now? Frigid Stars or When I See the Sun?
Frigid Stars.
Mm-hmm. Another band that you picked for that playlist was Blonde Redhead. So I'll give you The Melody of Certain Damaged Lemons versus their self-titled record.
That's tough. Self-titled.
Okay. I'm not sure how familiar you are with one of the following two. I'm very sure that you know Death Cab for Cutie. Mm-hmm. But I want to put you up with Death Cab for Cutie versus Clem's Night.
Oh wow! Oh, I love Death Cab, so sorry about the squeaking. She's got her little salmon toy. Yeah.
Ours says something like that too. Don't worry.
Death Cab for sure.
Death Cab. Are you familiar with Clem's Night? Is that a band that you know and listen to back in the day?
Yeah, brilliant. But I'm just like I'm a sucker for Death Cab for sure.
Yeah, what I always loved about Clem's Night was that they had some of their best tracks as B-sides.
Yeah,
I still remember Mike Kalinsky was on the Beautiful EP, and for me, it's their best track ever. Let's go a little bit more into the shoegaze kind of thing. Okay. I'll give you Breed Death versus Narrowhead. Which one of those two bands would you rather listen to after this interview?
Oh, I'll say Greet Death. I love some of that new stuff that they've done. I've known Narrowhead for a long time. They've used to open up for Nothing in the early days. But that new Greet Death record was pretty nice for sure.
It's funny that you mentioned Hum a few moments ago, because that was one of the other couples that I had. I'll give you Hum versus Cave In.
Hum. No offense to Cave In, but Hum. That's a tough one.
That is, and you see, we're moving a little bit more into the hardcore side of things. I'll give you Soul Glow versus Turnstile.
I would have to say, I just because of the Philly connection, I'm gonna ride with Soul Glow there. And I'm not even super familiar with a lot of their music, but I've met all those guys and they're good people. I also know a lot of the Turnstile gang and I love what they're doing, but they don't need my help anyway. So we'll ride with Soul Glow. Because it's Philly over Baltimore always. So,
well, depends on which sport we're talking. I'd never choose Baltimore, but I'd also never choose Philly. I'm sorry.
It's understandable. No one likes us, and we don't care.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, like, the Eagles have some of the most.
Please, we can't even. It's still a touchy subject this season, but yeah, I agree. I have I could go on a whole thing about Philadelphia Eagles fans, how they are now versus how they were when I was growing up. And now a lot of the fans are gentrifiers that moved to Philly. So I don't
onto the field.
I don't relate to the new age Eagle fan. I'm a Philadelphia born natural Eagle fan, born in Frankfurt Hospital, under the L tracks, born out of a cloud of crack smoke. I was there in the 80s and the 90s when we had a jail cell in our stadium. We were the only team in the league to ever have that. So what you see now is just a rendition. It's acting of of the cloth that I was cut from. So
Yeah,
you think that's bad? You don't know what bad is.
I mean, like me being a Packers fan, I mean that's something totally different. But I have to say, I would always, and I know I'm going to make enemies with that, but I would always, for the life of me, rather spend an evening with an Eagles fan than with a Cowboys fan.
Oh, well, we're good then, because that's the ultimate op right there. That's ops forever. I was hanging out with Post Malone at his show in Philly. He invited us in, and me and Aaron, who used to play bass, and we played beer pong with him backstage. Great dude. Like one of the most down to earth fools ever for being like this like extremely successful guy. But we played beer pong with him, and somehow me and Aaron both hit the first cup, same cup, and you're supposed to win immediately at that point. But he said he didn't play those rules, and I was like, "This is rich coming from a Cowboys fan. Always an excuse, always an excuse." So yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there are two football things that I would always support. Even though I don't like Stephen A. in general, but his hatred for the Cowboys is just fine. And of course, the second thing, I'm going to make a few more enemies out there. The Bears still suck.
Yeah, I hate the Bears, and I ride with the Packers too. Jordan Love's a good guy, so I don't like Caleb Williams. So and Caleb Williams hasn't even spoke on the Minneapolis shootings on ice when his head coach did, which is just
embarrassing.
Like, get it together. Like what's going on here is totally unacceptable.
Nope.
And everyone should have an opinion. There's no room,
especially if you have some kind of reach. You should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's tune it back to music. I have one more music question and one movie question. Okay. Radiohead. OK Computer versus Kid A. The old question.
OK Computer for me.
But you can understand why people love Kid A, right? I mean, like
I love Kid A too. Yeah. I love Kid A. I'm on the OK Computer side. I'm a 90s baby. I'm a 90s baby. So,
And last one. If I have somebody with the last name Palermo on the show, I have to give him the choice of two mafia movies.
All right.
Scarface versus Goodfellas.
Goodfellas over everything.
Even over The Godfather?
Over The Godfather. Over everything. Goodfellas is the best Italian gangster movie that has ever been created. When I was in prison, I've read a lot of these like true crime things about that whole era. And I'm infatuated with that era of the mafia. The real stories are somehow more insane than the actual
than anything that ever. Yeah.
But they did such a great job. Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, De Niro. Like, I mean, like it's when people tell me like, oh, like Departed or The Godfather, I'm just like, or Casino, which I love Casino too. But Goodfellas just is perfect from top to bottom. Yeah.
It would be hard for me to choose Godfather over Goodfellas or vice versa. But those for me would be my 1A and 1B.
I want to show you something real quick. And then I do got to go because I'm.
Yeah, you have another interview.
My friend Bob made this for me. I don't know. Can you see it there?
Yeah.
So that's a drawing of the Goodfellas scene with Pierre, my old dog, in the place of Joe Pesci.
Don't let Joe hear that.
It's a pretty strange one, but yeah.
So, Dominic, thanks for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey, thank you so much. I hope to see you out in Europe.
I will see you at Roadburn.
Hit up Will and make sure you come and say hello, all right?
I will.
Thanks for